Hello, everybody. We're here to talk about the latest Bald movie. It's another classic from the 90s, The Mask of Zorro, a 1998 film about the Zorro myth and legend, directed by one Martin Campbell, who also directed Goldeneye and Casino Royale, the 2006 version, which might be interesting to our analysis. Of course, he also went on to direct a follow-up to this, The Legend of Zorro. It's not so good. The Green Lantern, not so good, and The Foreigner, the Jackie Chan vehicle in 2017, which I thought was quite good.
Yeah.
It's story by Ted Elliott, Terry Rossio, and Rossio, and Randall Johnson, and I guess one other guy who didn't get credited but wrote 85% of the dialogue. I love this movie. It has a real fond place in my heart, and I was thrilled to be able to see it again. Jim, what did you think of The Mask of Zorro?
I have a lot of good things to say about The Mask of Zorro. I don't have any great things to say about The Mask of Zorro.
Interesting.
It's a good film. It's well constructed for the most part. It has some good performances, but there's nothing that really stands out to me as like if I had to recommend a movie for somebody to see.
I mean,
what would I recommend about this movie?
See, here's what my pitch would be, because as far as great things, I think there's several things that are great about this movie.
I think of one thing.
Huh?
I think of one thing.
Okay.
But we'll get there.
The stunts.
Okay, we're there.
Okay.
Yeah, stunts are amazing.
The stunts are amazing, and they're like the last of the just purely physical effect type of, because we talked about this in a pre-podcast. A year later, The Matrix will come out and completely change how stunts are done in Hollywood.
See a lot of Eastern influence coming in with wires, food kind of stuff. Yeah.
But this is an old-fashioned, romp and practical effects. Stakes are appropriately high, but also not like scary or terrifying or want to blow your brains out. I think that this script is one of the tightest, most efficient scripts I've ever seen. Like, it's right up there with like Raiders of the Lost Ark, in the sense that it's just one goddamn thing after another with some nice when the movie stops to take a breath, it effortlessly builds characters and relationships and sets more plots into motion. I think it's really smart that way. And then I also think that the chemistry of the leads, like Antonio Banderas and Catherine Zeta-Jones, are gorgeous people, and they clearly have a lot of fun in their dance scenes and the fight scenes. So yeah, like, I think this is great in that it's a really good plot, done with very impressive technical detail, with really charming, interesting leads. And it's like one of the last of the classic Hollywood, you see 500 people in a mine, you got 500 people in a mine. You see 200 people in a ballroom, there's 200 people in that damn ballroom. And I really like it.
Yeah, I think that's maybe why I wasn't so hot on it, because it does feel like the last of a very long string of movies that did exactly this. You mentioned Raiders of the Lost Ark, like Goldeneye is a good example. Like, it feels very much like a Goldeneye type thing. I just seen so many of those 90s movies that they all sort of blend together.
Yeah, I wonder if it would be interesting to go back and see some of these, because there's others in this kind of wheelhouse. Like, there was the Mel Gibson Maverick movie.
Right.
That reminded me of kind of like this lighthearted Southwestern romp, swashbuckling type of thing. I'm trying to think if there's... I feel like there's... like Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves.
I haven't seen that.
The Kevin Costner one, really?
Yeah, never saw it.
Well, that's going to be next week. No, I there's just a lot of these, like you said, there's like a lot of these that kind of led up to something in the 90s, and I think this is perhaps the greatest of them. I don't know. Do you want to talk about some things that I think, contribute to it being great, or do I want to call this great? I think it's great. I think it's just like an effortless movie to watch. Every 5 minutes I had a big grin on my face. I laughed out loud at a lot of stuff. I gasped at appropriate moments. I haven't seen this movie. I will say that like this is one of the first movies that I really fell in love with as an adult, and I got it on, was it VHS or DVD?
Probably be DVD in 98.
Yeah, I've seen this movie a bunch, because I was surprised at how much of the dialogue and stuff I could still kind of quote or see coming.
Yeah.
I thought that this script starts with the setup. Like, this 10-minute introduction does a lot of heavy lifting. It introduces, the idea of Zorro and like his particular type of sword fighting, like that Zorro's kind of like the fox of cunning and free, as the his theme song
He's
says.
very acrobatic.
He's very acrobatic.
Fighting.
He always fights with a smile on his face, like he's just having the most fun befuddling these guys.
It's essentially Wesley from Princess Bride, right? Like,
yeah,
that is that character.
Yeah, and then they do a lot of the classic stuff from like the old series that my dad is a big fan of, like the poking a guy in the butt to make him fall off a thing, and running along a rooftop through a hail of bullets, and the acrobatics amongst the this is big. This is like a Jurassic Park 2 thing where they essentially hide a gymnastic routine with the loose, like, oh, let's have these parallel bars. They're branches. They're way too straight for branches. Or these flagpoles that are suspiciously at odd angles and levels for someone they do an uneven bar routine on.
Yeah.
And then it ends up with like Zorro kind of like silhouetted against the setting sun. Like it's like a recreation of like one of those old Republic serial shorts that they would show in the front of a movie or something. Like this like 10-minute intro.
I mean, Zorro has that history to it, right? Like,
exactly.
Zorro goes back to what, 1920 or something? It's incredibly old.
It's a long history of him being a Zorro self. Yeah. And I think it's a really durable myth too, because it went and influenced Batman. Yeah. And there's been
if you look at the origin story of Zorro, it's every single superhero's origin story. Like, it's that trauma that leads to revenge, right? Like,
right.
And it takes different forms, but that is a lot of what goes into creating a superhero.
And I did some, because I didn't know a lot of the Zorro myth, but Zorro's always depicted as this wealthy nobleman that's fighting against his class. There's a lot of similarities between Zorro and Batman. Like, Zorro directly influenced Batman in a lot of ways. Like the fact that you got this wealthy kind of person from an upper class that's fighting for the people. They both have, like, you see in this movie, Zorro has his butler, Bernardo, which is the inspiration for Alfred Pennyworth, the Batman's butler. There's a lot of stuff that goes into that, but I thought that the other thing I thought was cool, how they established something unique about the Zorro character, is how the peasantry in this like introduction frequently save his bacon.
Yeah, like
Zorro would have been killed 2 or 3 different times had it not been for a well-timed tomato, or the crowd closing in on the guards, or urchin boys killing half a dozen dudes by dropping a statue on them. And I think. I think that's really cool. There's also this moment where they, after that, all the heroics and dashing deeds are done. They go back home, and Zorro, this is like his one day before retirement. This is his last hurrah. He ousted this Montero guy out of California, and now he can rest in his laurels. And there's a really cute scene of Anthony Hopkins wearing kind of like what passes for young makeup back in 1998. Now he'd be digitally like set back 30 years, but they just gave him...
he was in Westworld.
That's true. That's true.
They have done that to him.
Here they just kind of like put some shoe polish in his hair, and maybe some tan makeup, a little mascara.
Yeah, I have so many questions about Anthony Hopkins as Zorro, the Mexican hero. This Welsh actor.
Okay,
but
do we can maybe get there.
Yeah, we have to talk about that,
we'll
because
talk about
they wouldn't cast Anthony Hopkins today.
No, they wouldn't, and we'll definitely get there. But he's so goddamn charming. He's very good at selling the aristocracy of Zorro, and I also like his moments with the baby Elena. Like, he's fucking around with her and these flowers, and like the baby grabs onto the flowers and won't give Anthony Hopkins back. And I think this is just an improv scene. He just kind of like, oh no, you got to give me the flowers. Which I thought was, because there's no fucking way they scripted that. It's just Anthony Hopkins being cute with the baby, and it really worked.
And I briefly mentioned, he's in Westworld and they de-aged him, but I don't think Anthony Hopkins has lost a step. Like, he's lost a physical step. Obviously, he's like 100 years older now, but as far as acting goes, man, he is still bringing it in Westworld.
And that's what kind of makes this work. Like, he's got this unique kind of chemistry with Antonio Banderas, where he's kind of like antagonistic to him. Yeah. But also like just short of breaking him. Like, there's the carrot stick with the approach, which makes the development of Banderas into Zorro really feel satisfying. But they also then establish this villain. It's so great. Like, the main villain, this Don Rafael Montero, you already know he's a scumbag from the beginning. He's going to round up 3 guys, just peasants from the crowd, to kill just so he can get one last shot at Zorro.
Yeah.
Then I think the whole plot is to either capture Zorro or maybe wound him so he can then find him later. But he tracks him down to his home and then tries to claim his wife and does claim his daughter. And it's like just immediately establishes him as one of the greatest cinematic assholes of all time. Like that scene of him like cradling his daughter right in front of Anthony Hopkins' Zorro, just out of reach from him in the cage. Mm-hmm. It's like, my God, you just want to kill the man right then and there.
I wasn't sure how he tracked him.
How did he figure out that he was Zorro? Trail, or maybe
or something he said during the battle, maybe like because there was that scene on the balcony with him during the fight.
Yeah.
Where I think he might have tipped his hand a little too much.
Yeah, I
didn't get a clear picture of that. There are several things I'm muddy on with Montero.
Okay, because I thought that maybe he tracked him down with the blood trail, or this was he long suspected. Like, sometimes people medium suspect Bruce Wayne, but he knew he was wounded, so he could go and confirm it. And he's like, the blood tells.
Give him the squeeze test, yeah.
The blood tells, De La Vega. But I thought this also, like, we're going to talk about the stunts, but the sword fighting in this movie, and this scene in particular, is just really well staged. Almost always has clearly defined terrain, stakes, like there's an ebb and flow, where, like, in this one, you've got Anthony Hopkins, like, once he finally gets a sword, and he's just ferociously attacking this guy who's got the temerity to come to his fucking house and start this ruckus. But then the energy shifts when one of his men tries to shoot Zorro and hits his wife, and they also establish the love that Don Montero had for his wife by the guy just, him coming and running the guy through with a sword.
Right.
I thought that was really cool. So it's like there's also a hallmark of this swashbuckling kind of genre of film is the heroes and villains both have some kind of code of honor. They're not usually just like evil, depraved. They see themselves, and I like how that kind of is set up. And all this stuff, the intro instantly pays off. You don't have to wait for old Zorro to come, like half the movie for him to show up, like they establish these urchins are now kind of bandits of medium notoriety. Yeah. Old Zorro breaks out of the prison through a nice little Spartacus moment and a fake death, which... I
mean, that's what you get for disrespecting Zorro, or disrespecting this dead man so much by burying him only like a foot under the dirt.
Yeah.
Because, like, you bury him 6 feet under, he's not getting out.
Yeah, it's a good thing that they have lax burial standards there at that Spanish prison.
It's what you get for your disrespect. You get Zorro on your back.
But it's like they have this, like, kind of the tone shifts again where you have the brothers, and they're, like, with their three-fingered Jack, and they're kind of like these Robin Hood characters that they... kind of like a more of a lawless Zorro or a lower class Zorro. But then this cavalry dude, Captain Love, shows up.
Yeah.
Murders the brother, murders the friend, and now you got the mini boss with a grudge established. And then within another 3 minutes, the script is going to deftly tie the fates of these two protagonists together through the necklace. You got Don Raphael coming back simultaneously with some rabble-rousing about California from Californians, and I thought the plot to like buy California from General Santa Anna with his own gold, fucking right out of James Bond, right?
Yeah. No, I liked it.
In fact, that's what I wrote in my notes. So like this structure, this initial structure, reminds me so much of a James Bond film, and then I found out the guy directed Goldeneye and went on to do Casino Royale, which is one of the all-time great Bonds.
A lot of the stunts felt, or the fight scenes, the sword fights felt very much like something you'd see in a Jackie Chan film, which maybe, that's why you got the Foreigner gig later on. But yeah, it had a playfulness to it. It's got an energy of its own, like a very distinctive energy.
Yeah, it's storytelling happening in these fights.
Yeah, that and they're like using the scenery in innovative ways or interesting ways. It's just really good fight scenes throughout the whole movie.
Fight prop? Because I have a clear one.
Favorite fight prop?
Yeah, and the favorite thing to fight with in this movie that's not a sword.
Cannonballs? I really like the cannonball smash.
The cannonball chiclets on the ground. I like the bullhorns.
The bullhorns?
Yeah, when he's like got that giant rack of bullhorns. It's like 3 foot wide, and he's like wielding like a bow staff and corralling guys. When he was just the same scene.
Was it? Okay. So when he's trying to steal the horse.
Yeah.
That was a very Jackie Chan kind of scene.
It sure was. He's using
the scenery was
the jail cell doors, the disarm guys, and the cannonball.
Oh, I did really like that when they thrusted him through the thing and he just slides the door.
Yeah, it's very inventive. It seems like the kind of stuff that would work. I also like the way they brought Elena around in the story. I thought it was pretty clever how they she had this progressive realization of her actual history, which also matched kind of her growing agency. Like her father had held her down by saying, your dead mother was this prim and proper lady that would never do anything crazy. Whereas, she clearly wants to do things that are crazy, and she's advocating, like, at the dinner with the Dons, you're going to keep having these people doing this Zorro shit as long as they're not able to have any say in their own lives. Mm-hmm. And then as she finds more and more about herself, she's emboldened to do things like, fight Zorro, or try to fight Zorro, free what she suspects is her father, and then she's the one that actually saves the people from the massacre at the mines. And I thought that was pretty cool. And they also, the script, like they managed this conflict between the old Zorro and the new Zorro really well, where like every time Banderas' frustration would boil over, he'd be there with the wise words in the council. There's this one scene where like he was whipping, like using the whip to train him, and like he knew that he was going to charge him, and as like Antonio Banderas was working himself up, he just does this thing where he wraps the whip around his body so it'll stay there, and then draws a sword to like hand him his ass. Yeah, and it's just it's
so smooth.
It's so good. It's so smooth. And these guys, I guess, trained for months and months to get this the ability. And then the other thing I want to ask before we can get into like the racial element of the film is I saw that there is the original ending was with the classic Zorro dying in the arms of new Zorro and his daughter Elena, and then it just ended there. And then I guess it bummed test audiences out. So 3 months later, and for $5 million, $5 million additional dollars, they reshot the end to add the scene of him being back at the home with the baby. Wow. And showing a sense of domestic tranquility and whatnot. Good change.
That's a lot of money. I don't know, because I view Anthony Hopkins' death as a victory here. It wasn't the ideal victory, but it was certainly a victory. His daughter is now his again.
California belongs to the people.
She knows who her father is. Her real father is. Like California does belong to the people. The bad guy's killed. Both of the bad guys are killed. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't see why it would be such a huge bummer. Yeah, I mean, old Zorro dies, but old Zorro's going to die. Like, that's the thing. He says at some point, we lose the ones we love. We cannot change it. Mm-hmm. I feel like that's sort of a fitting end.
Yeah.
In a movie that espouses that belief.
Yeah, and the element kind of adds a little bit of poignancy or melodrama, that this guy that sacrificed so much. He sacrificed everything to liberate his daughter from this dastardly guy, but he doesn't get to... he doesn't get to enjoy that relationship other than the satisfaction of having saved her.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's like, I do think that to a large extent, the reshooting this and establishing that Elena and him already have a baby and kind of settling the domestic life is one of the fatal handicaps of the sequel, The Legend of Zorro, because they're kind of like stuck, that you have to... it's like if James Bond had a wife and kids in between one, like that's going to fundamentally anchor that character in a way that it wouldn't if he's just going around banging around the world, or if it's just him and his dangerous lady. You add kids to it, it's like The Walking Dead. It's often a fatal mistake, especially for an action thing. But
it's also I couldn't help but in that final scene think, is he dooming? Is Alejandro dooming his wife to the same fate that Diego's wife met? Like, not literally the same, not being shot, in the same scene, but like they make it clear that she's living in constant worry and fear that her husband won't be coming home, right?
Well,
that he's going to go out on a mission and get killed.
Also, him walking without the mask in front of hundreds of people at the end is... kind of fucked up, dude. Like, the open question at the end of this is like, maybe he shouldn't even be Zorro. Like, do you need a Zorro anymore? And the people love him, but the people can be imprisoned and tortured and have their loved ones threatened to reveal his identity to whoever wants it. And then what are you gonna do?
Yeah,
you're gonna like be eternally... Zorro only works as a vigilante that no one can find. Because if it's like Batman, if you know where the Batcave is, you're done. Batman's done. Batman as a concept is done.
Yeah.
So it was interesting.
Yeah, they almost spent that $5 million to turn it into a negative ending for me.
Yeah.
As opposed to the sort of positive ending that I saw in the original one.
Yeah. So let's talk about this racial thing you want to talk about.
Yeah.
The social justice aspect of it.
He's not wearing any darkened makeup, I don't think.
Talking
about Sir Anthony Hopkins. Yeah.
Okay. Because there was at the time. Because here's the thing. Here's how much I've changed. I didn't know any of this shit. Well, I just saw this movie and it's like, oh yeah, Antonio.
Oh, yeah.
He's Banderas is a Mexican, and Catherine Zeta-Jones. That fucking last name sounds Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
And Anthony Hopkins. Well, I mean, come on, he's Anthony Hopkins. What are you gonna do? But I didn't even know that there was like anything to like be concerned with there.
Yeah.
And I did see there were some people at the time not only pointing out the absurdity of like Hopkins playing a Spaniard, but the Antonio Banderas is an actual Spanish Spaniard, and he's literally
playing
from
Mexican hero.
He's literally from the group of people who are the villains playing the hero. So it's like, yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. And again, it's an old time. Like, this is like only 10 years on from Sean Connery playing an Egyptian Spaniard in Highlander. So let's discuss.
I mean, I was 16 at the time when this movie came out, so I neither knew nor probably would have cared if someone brought up, the problematic nature of this.
Right. You'd be like, sounds like bullshit to me.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be like, whatever, dude. I like Anthony Hopkins. Nowadays, that's very different. I have different views. I think society as a large whole has a lot of shifted views on that. So yeah, it certainly wouldn't happen today. You wouldn't have Anthony Hopkins playing this character.
Yeah, and I think there's a couple things that make it not as egregious as some. The fact that like Catherine Zeta-Jones and Anthony Hopkins are Welsh men and women, respectively. The idea that like you've got the native people fighting against these colonizers, like I don't know that it's a huge difference to have a person from Spain be the colonizer versus a person from England. Like they're different. They're royal, they're aristocrats, and they're not of the people.
Yeah, but this movie has a very specific setting. It's set, the Mexican War for Independence.
I'm not arguing that wouldn't be better if you did adhere to like find Spanish actors. And I don't know who would like Pablo. Isn't Pedro Pascal? Isn't he actually Spanish Spaniard?
I don't know.
But yeah, you could find, and that's the whole point. Is like
you would find them nowadays.
Yeah, like there is really good actors out of Spain, and you would for extra authenticity, if for nothing else, cast those people rather than some well-respected guy from Welsh.
You would think so. And then there's stuff like Ghost in the Shell. So what are you gonna do? Yeah,
exactly. So yeah, I just we had to talk about that. There's a couple other things I want to talk about from production. I thought the soundtrack is really, really good. Like James Horner is the guy who composed it, and I thought the Zorro theme is great. Alina has her own theme. There's a lot of like really distinctive the way they had the music would shift tone, when the brothers were successful in their heist of the strong box, and you're playing really Wild West kind of giddy up music, and then it just crashes to a halt when the camera smash cuts to Captain Love.
Yeah, it's really very good. Indiana Jones, like those sort of it has a style that's of an era, like those are with those old serialized shows, and then it also has a modern day aesthetic.
Did you see the historical parallels that they weaved into the film?
No.
So I guess Antonio Banderas' character Alejandro Murrieta is a fictional brother of the real life Joaquin Murrieta, which is the brother in the film, who is a real Mexican outlaw who's killed by the California State Rangers led by Harry Love, which it's pretty much the same thing in the film. And they also captured Marieta's right-hand man, Three-Fingered Jack. Same guy. However, that person was also Mexican and wasn't a gringo. But also, as in the movie, the real life Captain Love preserved both of their heads and Jack's hand in large alcohol-filled glass jars.
This is
which
horrific.
I actually had my notes like, this seems a little over the top and out of place in this film. Like this is some genuine fucking horror in this. But like shit, it actually happened in real life. So what are you going to say?
Yeah, no, I was shocked when they showed that because I didn't remember much of this movie. And when they showed that, I'm like, what is this movie rated? Because that is a pretty shocking thing to see in what is a romantic action adventure movie.
What's more shocking, the fact that the head was in a jar, or the fact that Antonio Banderas' Zorro takes a drink of the head juice?
That's disgusting.
Why? Like, I get the villain offers it to you, but like, Did he say, like, I want this guy to not suspect me of being his brother so much I'm going to cavalierly drink this?
But I wouldn't drink head juice if it was my brother's or not. Like, that doesn't prove anything to me. That just proves it's head juice, and I'm not going to drink it.
Some random guy with head bubbling in some brandy, and the villain offers to me. I'm dashing it on the floor because you're a fucking sicko.
Yeah, you're fucking disgusting, man.
The hell, man.
I'm not drinking the head juice.
But yeah, like I'm like, oh, this crazy Captain Love who's cutting people, like ironically named Captain Love, who's all about hate and you cut these guys' heads off. Keep like this is some crazy Walking Dead shit. No, it's a historical fact.
I suppose he could have been worse. He does bury the body. At least I'm sure the body got a respectful burial. Yeah, 1 foot below the surface.
That's a great honor. He wanted to give him an honor. Do you think he maybe got the extra 6 inches? He got the 18-inch burial.
I mean, this guy to me was as much of a villain as Montero was.
Oh yeah, and he's a different he's
the equivalent villain for a different Zorro. Like they do a great job of saying like these men their fortunes are sort of tied together in a at the fate level, right? It's like both of these men have had similarly traumatic experiences, have similar people who they're seeking revenge upon. They do a really good job thematically tying them together.
Yeah. I thought that I want to talk about the stunt work now because I guess the guy responsible for the amazing sword work. I don't know what you feel about the Star Wars movies, but I don't know that sword fighting of this particular style. Like this isn't realistic sword fighting.
No.
But stage sword fighting, I don't know that it gets any better. And Bob Anderson, the guy who did all the choreography for the old Errol Flynn Robin Hoods and pirate movies, came back and did this, and he said that Antonio Banderas is the most gifted natural swordsman that he had seen in working with it. And I guess that Banderas, before he showed up for the training on the film, he trained with the Spanish Olympic fencing team for 4 months, and he was really good at pulling this stuff off. In fact, I did a lot of freeze framing in the film, when he's up on the table, leaping up on the table and fighting 5 guys at a time. I'm like, did he do? I mean, I know he didn't do the horse effects.
No. Right.
But the guy that did that looks so much like Antonio Banderas, and the mask and the big grin does a lot of the work for it. But still, Jesus, they did a really good job at that stuff.
No, that stunt man who rides the horses is phenomenal.
Yeah,
I couldn't believe how good he was, and there are just scenes that drop my jaw because I know they're real. Like when that guy's dancing around on a horse, he's really doing that.
Yeah.
When he's riding 2 horses over another guy riding a horse, he's really doing that. When he jumps off a 3-story roof and hits the cobblestone street, I assume it's not real cobblestone, but somebody jumped down that thing.
And I also did a freeze frame analysis of that because I thought I'd see a pad move or something. But damn, it looks like he just landed on bare ass dirt. And it's so funny you say that because within 24 hours, Cecily and I had been working our way slowly through the Lord of the Rings again.
Okay.
And I just finished the Return of the King, and then 24 hours later, I watched this. And it's fun to see Legolas climbing over this 3-story elephant and bouncing off arrows and surfing off its trunk and doing all this shit. But you just know it's not real.
Yeah.
When Eowyn's riding between elephant legs and slicing tendons and stuff, that's just a green screen shit. But that horse, the whole horse segment, I thought was amazing. Also, in the scene where they steal the horses, I thought, as much as I liked John Wick 3's horse kung fu, Antonio Banderas did it first. He did 20 years ago. Like
Yeah.
a lot of the same shit that that John Wick was doing. This movie did it first 20 years ago. But the stunts I think are not only like accomplished at a very high technical detail, they're also unusually well integrated into the film. Like something I bemoan as much as I like the Fast and Furious sequels. They have to come up with the set pieces and then invent plot things to like why they should happen. Where in this, every stunt felt like it was earned. Every fight scene felt like it had a story, that things were being advanced and told. There's also often escalating stakes. Like when Zorro first goes to steal the horse, he's kind of fucking around. I don't think he's armed.
Yeah.
He's like fighting with his fist, and then it progresses to like props and like bull horns, and he finally gets a sword. Then he gets two of them, and then a giant comes and shakes the swords out of his hands. And I don't know, it's just there's an art to that kind of like each fight is its own little 3-act thing with rising tension and
Oh yeah.
and then
And on the page, it probably just says Zorro fights and wins, right? Like
that's where a good stunt coordinator is worth
Yeah.
their weight in gold. And then the other thing that I think it makes this movie work is I feel like Catherine Zeta-Jones and Antonio Banderas just have like off the charts charisma.
yeah, they do.
And-
There's that scene in the barn where they go from essentially enemies to lovers in the span of
Yeah.
a single sword fight,
Yeah.
which was really good.
And they establish it like when they first meet at the party, and he does that little like magic trick with the rose.
Yeah.
And
And they go and dance.
they dance, and then it's
s-
like fucking on.
Speaking of stunts and dancing,
Yeah.
it was hilarious to me that in the wide shots there are definitely stunt dancers.
That jumped out in the way that the other stunts didn't.
Yeah.
I think Antonio Banderas is surprisingly a better swordsman than he is dancer.
Apparently.
Didn't see that coming. I loved when he had to go fight Elena, and she's like, like Catherine Zeta-Jones, like she's drop dead gorgeous, and like her kind of like lunging with swords and like fire in her eyes is even better. But like the sword hilt, like when he finally decides to fight her and it just pops up in the frame, like this obvious boner joke. I fucking love it.
Nice.
I fucking love him stealing a smooch or two in between the action.
And he chops her clothes off.
Chops her clothes
And
off,
then her dad
yeah.
walks in, or
Uh-huh.
her fake dad walks in. How do
Yeah.
you explain that scenario?
It's Zorro, man. This bastard.
Zorro came in and
young
chopped my
and
clothes
vigorous.
Very vigorous.
I've already had to confess to some sins once because of this guy.
Yep.
But yeah, I don't know. I thought that like we talked about the horse stuff, but I just want to.
And they use that twice, the clothes thing, because I consider that a stunt. So they don't show it in the barn scene, but they do show the clothes being pulled off of Antonio Banderas when Anthony Hopkins is whipping him.
Yeah.
Like after he comes back and says, "Oh, you essentially don't deserve to wear that
right.
thing if you're."
Split your mask, split
I don't know how they did that effect. I really don't know how they did that effect.
because it snaps so clean.
Yeah.
Like that, especially the mask.
Uh-huh.
Like I can see, okay, it's
The
it's
cloak,
easy to
you just
rig
got a guy
the
off
yeah,
screen pulling it. Yeah,
but
whatever.
the mask splitting and there's no split there before was pretty incredible.
Yeah, it is real good.
I actually thought I thought that Anthony Hopkins actually did that whip, like snuffing out the candles with the whip, but apparently he just cracked the whip and they had those rigged with like a little puff tube, so they blow out in sequence.
Okay.
But I'd somehow misremembered in the last 20 years that he had gotten so good at a whip that he could do that.
He trained with the Olympic whip
He trained
team
with
for
the
4
Olympic,
months.
the Spanish Olympic, the Welsh Olympic whip team, which is clearly the top 3 whip team in the world.
Yep.
But
Naturally gifted whipper.
The horse effects, I want to say, because like if you haven't seen this movie, you might think that we're talking about just like some really intense riding and shit. Like this guy is doing that weird thing where he does a 180 on the horse, but through some complicated pommel horse shit with the ground. At one point, he's riding 2 horses at once.
Yeah, standing on 2 horses, riding them at once.
And
one
as you
foot on
point,
each.
and he rides over a guy.
Yeah, who is also on a horse.
Who's
Not just the
also
guy
on a
standing there.
horse.
He's just as tall as him.
Yeah.
He rides over the top.
Yeah, and like that plays as a really badass scene. It's also comedic because like when the guy like turns around and he just sees empty horses riding behind him.
Oh, it's amazing. Yeah.
And then like I think the most incredible thing is this guy rides full speed towards this low-hanging branch while he's surfing the 2 fucking horses and jumps them. Lands on both of the horses' backs just to prove that he can do it, and then instantly somehow ninja moves onto one of them. It's as impressive as everyone oohs and ahs about the scene of Raiders of the Lost Ark where Indiana Jones uses his whip to go underneath to go up and over the Nazi wagon and then underneath it, and he's drug in the ditch. Like this, why doesn't no one talk about the horse shit in Zorro?
I don't know.
I'm talking about the horse shit in Zorro. I'm bringing it back.
There is like a long history in Hollywood of these type of horse stunts, right? Like I know there were stuntmen who became like famous Western actors because of their prowess on a horse. So I think this has a long storied tradition.
Yeah.
Which I'm not like super up on.
I wonder if we'll ever see anything like this again, because this did feel like, why would anyone spend the money to do it when they can just pay some nerds to render shit on a render farm?
Because it looks better. I really think it's more impressive.
And this movie will essentially never age.
Right.
Like, it's always going to look as good as it does, and with very rare exception, there's nothing that looks kind of out of place or dumb in this movie.
Yeah.
In fact, a lot of stuff they did practical. I thought it was really cool. The final scene where they're out fighting, the old Zorro's fighting his old nemesis, and new Zorro's fighting his new nemesis in the slave mines, is really cool because like it feels like appropriately desperate, but for different reasons. Like old Zorro's wounded and he's struggling, but he's just fighting for purely personal reasons at that point. Where new Zorro felt powerful and in control of the entire fight, but he's fighting against time and before the people get blown up.
Yeah, and that scene is so well constructed. That fight,
or just cuts back and forth, and the scenes effortlessly hand the energy off to each other.
Yeah, and he's gumming up the works there with the shit he's doing. But then the way that the two villains, and I talked about the way that the two Zorros are tied together. These villains are literally tied together at one point, with Captain Love being on this hanging cart. Right. And then this other rolling cart dragging Montero over the edge to smash Captain Love with a cart full of gold bricks. I mean, if you're not dead at that point.
Yeah. No, I was thinking like that's like you hear about like getting hit by a ton of bricks. Well, gold's actually heavier than brick.
Way
so
heavier.
you're getting triple ton
It's
action.
literally two birds with one stone. And I loved it. I loved the way that the ending of that came together.
Yeah, and it
felt so natural.
There's been epic deaths for people. Like, I always think of Arnold Schwarzenegger in True Lies, where he looks at the guy and says, "You're fired," then literally fires him off of a missile. But this was a lot more organic and kind of a delight.
Or
as
it's
it
you.
unfolded.
You're the Rocket Man.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
Kind of thing. Yeah.
Exactly. But man, there's so many, like Antonio Banderas does this move where he unsheaths his sword and like the sun glints off the entire length of the blade. He just fucking did that.
Did he really? I assumed that had to be composited.
According to an interview, it was his idea to do it, and he had to do it and maintain eye contact with the other guy, and he did it in just 3 takes. So
seems really hard.
That was fucking cool. But this also contains set piece contains the dumbest thing in the whole fucking movie, and I can't tell if it's dumb on its face of it or if I've just seen this stupid shit 10 different times in lesser movies. Shovel surfing.
Oh yeah, it's not expertly done here either.
And it's clearly this shovel is tied to the dude's feet, and there's no need for it. Like I've seen Zorro zip down a ton of lines. He's got that nifty thing where he puts his two swords together and he slides down there, or whatnot. Like what the shit is this? The X Games in the middle of my perfectly executed pseudo historical, Western swashbuckling film
is probably just a variety thing.
Get your Tony Hawk out of my Zorro, would you please? He's a fox, not a hawk. And then so now I just got like random crazy shit that.
I've got a complaint about this movie.
Oh yeah,
I think they set something up that they never knocked down. It's the sword cane. Do you know what I'm talking about? There's a sword cane in this movie.
I only know what you're talking about because right before we recorded this, you asserted that there was a sword cane. I'm like, get the fuck out of here with your sword cane.
Yeah, so in the scene where they first show up to the banquet, to Montero's banquet, where he's going to organize all the Dons, Antonio Banderas has this cane, and he gets off his horse, and he walks toward the screen, and he pulls the end of it out, revealing what looks like a metal rod, a sword.
Yeah, he's got 6 inches of a backup sword here.
Right, and then he puts it back. And that's the last time that is ever addressed. And in fact, it's so not addressed that at the end of that scene where Captain Love shows him his brother's head in a jar, he walks outside and he snaps that very same cane over his knee. He snaps a sword cane over his knee.
Hard to snap. I would think it'd be hard to snap a sword cane with an actual, like, maybe it's a cheap, shitty backup sword, but still,
But
it's
then
a piece
why
of steel.
have it?
It's a piece of carbon steel.
It is, yeah.
You're not going to snap that over your fucking knee. No,
And
no
what
way.
good is a shitty sword going to do you in a sword fight?
I would think none at all. If you're in a desperate situation, you need a backup cane sword. It better be at least a decent sword.
Yeah, you don't want to snap a sword cane over your knee, and you
Right.
don't want a sword cane that you can snap over your knee.
Right. I think that there's a lot of stuff I love, just like random moments. Like I love the Spartacus I Am Zorro, where they're breaking the old Zorro out of the prison. I love Anthony Hopkins cracking that man's Adam apple. Like,
He's got a hell of a grip.
like a walnut. He just grabs it and it just like crack. His
Yeah.
Adam apple. His Adam apple. He did that to him. This is one of the all-time great training montages too.
It's a pretty standard training montage, but it's good.
Oh, standard, eh?
I think so, yeah.
I don't know. I think that like the Anthony Hopkins delivering the dialogue elevates it.
Okay.
You know, that he's
Yeah.
giving like this really soaring kind of like rhetoric about, you know, I'll teach you how to fight, how to this, how to fuck, how to live, how to take your revenge with honor and live to celebrate it. Like I fucking can't get enough of that stuff.
Yeah.
I love like the look on Antonio Banderas' face when he gets a load of his new shave, where he gives this kind of like, okay, I see what you, oh, I'm a beautiful man. I fucking love that. Like, it's,
But later he's wearing fake mustache, which I guess is good. Like that's a pretty good.
when does he wear a fake mustache?
Yeah, so as Zorro, he wears a fake mustache and soul patch thing.
What do you mean it's
Because he takes them off at some point. He just
seriously?
removes them. Yes.
Oh, I thought that was his
100%.
legit Dick Van Dyke thing. He's got or Van Gogh or whatever you call it.
Because he has it in that scene that you're talking about in the tub, right?
He has it in a scene. He has it when he goes to steal Tornado, Tornado 2.0.
But then
he
I think
has
when he
it
becomes Zorro,
when he is the Spanish nobleman, he has it.
but as soon as he turns to Zorro, it's gone.
As soon as he gets the torch passed as real Zorro, he's clean shaven.
Yes.
I
And
think he just
he
shaves
applies no wait, he applies a fake mustache.
At what point does he apply to fake mustache? When
you
does
never
he take
see
it off?
you never see him
take
apply
off?
it, you see him take it off.
You see him take off the well,
yes.
I would doubt you, except for you already busted my chops on the fake sword, the cane sword.
I'm telling you, man, I noticed some weird shit in movies.
I believe
This is
you.
one of the things, but it makes sense, right? Like, I think we all know Clark Kent's disguise is bullshit, right? A pair of glasses does not change your entire appearance, but a
Yeah.
mask
Yeah.
and a pencil mustache and
Yeah.
a soul patch, maybe.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. Like the stunt work, I think works a lot because the mask. It's kind of the same reason early seasons of Daredevil work so well. It's like you hide a half a person's mask, and the half the time his mouth is just locked in a straight line of a grimace.
Right. Yeah.
You know, you get a reasonably fit dude with a square jaw. It can be anybody. But yeah, I thought that was really cool. I really thought the scene between Anthony Hopkins and Catherine Zeta-Jones, where he is brushing down the horse and she kind of surprises him, is really
Yeah.
well done.
It was maybe my favorite, like, scene from like an acting perspective in this entire thing.
like his whole being is straining and bursting out to tell her, but he knows it's not the right time. He can't do it.
Yeah, and the stories that he's telling are of her,
He's
and
giving
she's
breadcrumbs. Yeah.
Yeah, she's getting what he's saying, but not on the level he wants her to get it. And then, yeah, it's a really, really good scene.
And there's also like this dancing thing, which I thought could be gratuitous. They, old Zorro said to new Zorro, the one thing you can't do is let this Don get the Dons get up from the table and leave without you.
Yeah.
So his quick acting of like, I want to take this guy's daughter and whirl her around in a vigorous young way. And the way they showed the Dons kind of like, you had the stakes, like he's going to walk up these stairs, he's going to go around half the room, and if he hasn't called a halt to this stuff, then he's failed his mission. And the way they have like the Don's kind of walking and he's talking distracted, he sees what's going on in the corner of his eye, and then he turns the corner and he looks down, he's like, what, they're doing what now? This guy's face is between her breasts, and then the way he kind of like cravenly throws her under he instigated this whole shit,
Right.
and then throws her under the bus like, oh, your daughter, I guess this is how
Yeah.
they're dancing in Spain nowadays. What an asshole, what a shit.
Yep.
But it works so well. Also, like the chemistry again, like he'd spent this whole dinner complaining about these sweaty pursuits not being suitable for a gentleman, and when he asks her if you'd like to try something more spirited, and she's like, well, it's just concerned for you and your fear of perspiration. It's so good. And then I've got a couple other just completely random things. I love it. There's this thing in the 90s movies where they began and ended with the protagonist like backlit against this like dark stage. Like I know two of the Schumacher Batmans ended this way. Zorro ended this way. This had the innovation of him cutting a flaming Z, and as he's doing it, they added a panther roar. The exact same panther roar that happens when like Ron Burgundy they deploy and where they deploy the Sex Panther. Like, the exact same roar in the middle of this thing.
You know, I didn't even notice it.
It's amazing. There's a couple of different things. This movie could have gone a bunch of different ways. Number one, Robert Rodriguez was originally attached to direct the film.
Oh, wow.
But the studio didn't like. I guess his script is a lot more violent, R-rated, and bloody.
They kept the head thing though.
I wonder if that's like that was part of the thing that was in that script. Like he had researched these villains and like added this authenticity, and I think that's half the reason also that no one batted an eye of Antonio Banderas being a Mexican Zorro is because by this point he'd already been like the mariachi and had done like 2 of those 3. So it's like Robert Rodriguez is casting him in Latino roles. So
yeah, that's the image he had.
Yeah,
certainly as the Mexican hero
he played
villain.
He'd already played the narrator in Evita. So like he's kind of like done a whole bunch of this. Until I started digging into the controversy of this film, I had no idea that Antonio Banderas was European Spanish and not like Latin America Spanish.
Yeah.
Okay, a couple other things. Robert Rodriguez was going to cast Salma Hayek as Elena.
Okay.
It's a good Elena.
I think that could have worked as well, yes.
Shakira was offered the role of Elena. She turned it down because she wasn't confident in her English.
And she wouldn't be allowed to twerk at all.
Yeah,
she said, there's dancing? They said, nah, not that kind.
It would have been interesting to see if she could pull off like that kind of like, soaring ballroom type of flamenco dancing.
Oh, I'm sure she could.
I bet she could.
She's an extremely talented dancer. She doesn't just shake her ass. I'm kidding.
Her hips don't lie.
They
do not.
Starts
to shake. Sean Connery was originally tapped to be the old Zorro. I think Anthony Hopkins is just a massive upgrade. As much as I love Sean Connery. Because Sean Connery is almost 10 years older than Sir Hopkins, Sir Anthony. And also, I just felt like, because I've seen a couple of his action films around this, like League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, he doesn't pull off the stunt work. Whereas Anthony Hopkins fucking did some really impressive stage sword fighting, especially the first fight he has with Don Raphael in his home.
Yeah.
I thought he showed some real skill and youth and vigor. As Catherine Zeta-Jones would say. Here's a couple people that were attached to the role of Zorro before it was given to Banderas.
Okay.
Benicio del Toro.
Sure.
That's an interesting take on Zorro. I wish I could see that version of Zorro.
It doesn't feel like it quite matches the tone. I think he brings a little darker tone to this thing. Perhaps.
Yeah.
A little less fun, a little more pathos.
Yeah, maybe a little Tim Burton, like a little darkness too.
Yeah.
Andy Garcia. That's terrible.
No,
terrible.
I don't like it.
Nah, he's no.
Yeah.
Mark Anthony. Super no.
Yeah, he doesn't strike me as Zorro.
It's a different type of Zorro.
I just think of him in Hackers, and yeah, he's not Zorro.
Tom Cruise. So Steven Spielberg was originally attached to direct this. He gave it up to do Band of Brothers, but his attachment was Tom Cruise.
Let's put a Welshman and an American
in
the 2 main roles here as Zorro. Who are we going to cast for the Mexican hero Zorro?
Does Tom Cruise get a really dark tan for this production too? Like, how far do they commit? How far does Spielberg commit?
He's a method actor.
This?
He gets a Mexican citizenship.
Oh my god. And that's it. That's pretty much. I just wanted to throw some of this what could have been at you. It's a really fun movie. I think it is one of the rare, because I've seen a lot of kind of these schlocky 90s stuff, and a lot of it just doesn't hold up because the stunt work isn't as good. In fact, I'm finding that any kind of gunplay before about 2000 is just hilariously bad. Like the heroes are all blinking every single time they fire a shot. They're not using sights like it's this weird people doing Arnold Schwarzenegger shit without his physique and swagger and charisma to pull it off. And then, they got the hyper realistic modern, like John Wick style now. This is kind of in between, but like, you got swords, you got muskets, you got it's just a great swashbuckling type of film.